Welcome to Finding Forgiveness, a family fairy tale podcast. Join host Susan Gibson as she summons the courage to ask the hard questions, probes deep, dark secrets, and attempts to fill in the gaps while exploring the relationship between her and her mother. Discover the magic of self-discovery, relationship exploration, and the profound journey of forgiveness. Now, your host, Susan Gibson.
Have you ever wanted to forgive somebody, someone who you're in a significant relationship with, someone who has caused you great harm? Or perhaps you've wondered what it would be like to forgive that person. From my experience with my mother, forgiveness is a gift we give to ourselves first and to the other person second. The year was 2012. Obama was sworn in as president. iPad mini was released, a device that I use throughout every single day since then. Pantone Color of the Year, Tangerine Tango. Billboard's Top 10 included such recording artists and musicians as Maroon 5, Ellie Goulding, Kelly Clarkson, The Wanted, Nicki Minaj, One Direction. The best movies of the year included historical dramas like Lincoln, war dramas like Zero Dark 30, quirky dramas like Moonrise Kingdom, cult dramas like The Master, and transformational dramas like Beasts of the Southern Wild and Silver Linings Playbook. It was the year I forgave my mother. It didn't start out that way, but I sensed big things were coming. I'd made a commitment to my health and fitness a few years prior, and in 2012 I met my goals, and those new habits were deeply embedded in me, became a way of life for me that I continue to this day. I thought I was moving to Scotland with my husband of 25 years. Instead, I left him and all the accoutrements of my previous life, except my 2 cats, my vehicle, and 2 suitcases. We embarked on a new life together. I started a massive renovation project on my grandmother's house in northern Maine, small rural community where I grew up, and the house where my mother was born and raised. A house I'd owned since 1998, but 2012 was the year I started. I met my true life partner, Siraj, an amazing moment in my life and one that's carried me forward to this day. I started doing deep personal transformation work, reflecting on all my influences. I started sharing stories of my life, stories I'd never told to anyone outside of those who were in the story with me. I started looking at my relationships with friends, colleagues, past employers, clients, family, and began being intentional about those that took my energy and those that gave me energy. And many I removed from my universe. I evaluated those daily, weekly, monthly, yearly tasks and started outsourcing those that I wasn't good at or balked at doing. Really freed up my mental space, my emotional space to be able to focus on those things that gave me energy. I gave up alcohol and caffeine, ending a daily cycle of highs and lows, a cycle that started in my teens. Throughout all of this exploration of myself, I started listening to what the universe was telling me. And I fell in love with myself at the age of 50. All of these things led me to forgiving my mother. I made a plan to visit my mother towards the end of 2012. I visited her frequently, so this was nothing out of the ordinary. I did have something extraordinary to talk to her about on this trip, however. I had 3 things. 3 big things. I've left my husband, I've met someone new, and I forgive you. I spent 3 days with her, and each day I brought up an item on my list. Day 1, I've left my husband. What I learned from my mother when I told her this was that she and my dad, when they were getting divorced, they didn't tell anybody until the divorce was final. Outside of lawyers and judge, they kept it a secret. They kept it secret from the prying eyes and gossipers, which is no small feat in a small rural community. Day 2, I told her I've met someone new. She could see the shift in me, the dramatic shift in me with this new relationship. She shared this joy with me without hesitation, without judgment, with absolute open arms. And when she had the chance to meet Suraj, not too long after this, she loved him instantly. And they shared a deep love for each other until she died in 2021. Day 3, I forgive you. This was the big one. This is where I extend myself into the unknown. I bolstered my courage. I'd done all this work throughout the year, some intentional, some unintentional, that led me to this place with my mother. I waited for a pause in our chit-chat. I looked Mom straight in the eyes and said, Mom, I forgive you. Nothing more. Now, my mother was a talker. Imagine CNN headline news with the ticker tape rolling across the bottom of the screen. She talked about the day's events, about her cats, about family events. It could be something as, did you see that story about the bunnies, to the earthquake in Turkey? I mean, you never knew what was coming next. It was just a constant talking. And after I said, I forgive you, she went completely silent for 5 full minutes. I was watching the clock. I happened to be sitting in a position where I could see the wall clock behind her. And after 5 minutes, I stood up and said, Mom, I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to give you some space. And she jumped up and threw her arms out in kind of a helpless gesture and said, I don't know what to say. And I looked at her and I said, I know. And that's okay. And I went for a walk. And I was okay. It was a huge realization for me that I was okay. When I returned after an hour or so, life went on, but not as it was. We had shifted to an unknown place, and it felt different. I felt different. I felt lighter. I felt more at ease. I felt I could say or do anything, and we would be okay. We never talked about this day, but we definitely felt it deep inside both of us, and it redefined us as mother and daughter. I reflect on that moment a lot. What I've realized is that by forgiving my mother, I let go of the fear of losing her. The fear that had bonded us as mother and newborn child 50 years prior. This was a gift from the universe that I found within us, and it is priceless. No, there's a big decision about finding forgiveness. Do you want to share that forgiveness with the other person who's done you harm? Or do you want to keep that to yourself and just say within yourself, I forgive you? Either scenario works. Either scenario is for the betterment of you and a step towards redefining that new relationship with the other person. I felt it was critical that I say this out loud to my mother. She and I had spent all of these years not sharing with one another. not sharing what was deep in our hearts, not allowing that acknowledgement of harm, an acknowledgement of the wounds that were there, the years of misunderstanding and hurt. And I felt, for me, I needed to say that out loud. And that allowed us to acknowledge that together, and allowed us to appreciate the courage that we both have. It was a dramatic shift for me in how I viewed my mother. By letting go of that fear of losing her that was always there, that whole, redefining of our relationship, embarking on a new relationship after we reconnected, 26 years prior, at the age of 24, when we started to reconnect and define a new relationship. I always had that fear that if I went to the dark places with her, that I would lose her, that she would withdraw from me, that she would reject me again. And I couldn't face that hurt. I couldn't face that. And so over those years, getting to know her better, observing her, spending time with her, and that year of doing that deep personal work on myself, that gave me the courage to say, I'm ready to step into the unknown with my mother. I need to do it for me. That was an act of love for myself. And losing that fear was big for me, because she was facing some massive medical issues, issues that were degenerative, that eventually she succumbed to in 2021. And by confronting that fear, having the courage to tell her, I forgive you, losing the grip that fear had on me of losing her once again, I was at peace. And through all the medical crises that she and I went through in the ensuing years between 2012 and 2021, if that was going to be the moment of her death, I was ready to let her go. That was so important to me in the love that I have for myself. That was so important to us that I didn't panic when I got those calls. Yes, it were sad times, absolutely. And her death was very sad. I miss her every day. I think of her every day. She appears to me when I most need her. A picture of an eagle will come up, or I'll see, the bird of prey flying in the sky, soaring high. And I'm like, hi, Mom, I see you today. I welcome you. I thank you for being here for me. However, we needed to be at peace. We needed to clear that baggage of our past with one another without actually going there. It was enough for me to say to her, I forgive you, to let all that baggage go. It still crops up every once in a while, but less and less, less and less. It helped us to redefine how we interacted with one another, which was a gift also. We could have fun. We could be light. We could be playful. We could become friends. Something I never thought would happen. And I'm grateful for that. We could be silly with each other. We didn't have to make big plans with one another. I stopped making plans to go see her. I just showed up, knocking on her door. Here I am. Could stay one night, couple of nights, whatever the case may be. And as we moved through those years together, started spending more and more time near her, letting her know, I'm here for you. I invited her to come and live with us. Had no idea what that would look like. She respectfully declined, which I knew she would. She had a beautiful place where she lived with a strong community of love and support. medical doctors and all that she needed as an aging, ailing person. And that was important. That was important to her. However, by saying that to her, it gave a commitment to her that I was here for you, that I was going to take care of you to the best of my ability, no matter what it was, that we would enter into that commitment together, that I would respect you in your wishes, no matter what, that I would listen to your stories again and again with love, looking for something new, hearing something new, because I let go of all of the wishing of stories about us. And I could just hang on the stories that she shared of her life, of her friends, of her family, of her current events, of her gossip. And I cherish those. No matter how many times I heard it again and again, there was always something new. I asked her to be my accountant. That was her lifelong profession. And after she retired, I asked her to be my accountant, to do the daily work and the monthly work leading up to the annual CPA work. Because I have my own consulting business. And what she told me when she took on that work was, "You are a puzzlement to me, my daughter, but I'm going to figure you out." And she did in her own way. She figured out who I was as daughter, as businesswoman, as child, as caregiver, as a human being. And I laugh every time I think of that, of her saying that to me. I cherish that. And she figured it out through numbers. That's how she made sense of her world. It was through numbers. And everything was open to her. Everything. Every single detail of my life at that point, when I opened my books to her, every single transaction was there for her. That opened up a whole world of no longer keeping secrets. And that was an amazing experience with her. One thing to keep in mind when you enter into this area of finding forgiveness, you have to be gentle with yourself. It is a huge act of courage. Whether you say it out loud to the other person, maybe you write them a letter, maybe you make a recording, or maybe you just say it inside of yourself. It becomes a daily mantra for you. I forgive you. I forgive you. I forgive you. It is an act of healing. However, it's going to put you into a place of unknown with that other person. You don't know how they're going to react or respond. You're going to act differently through that act of forgiveness. Again, whether it's spoken or unspoken, you will be different as a result of that. And that new behavior is going to throw that person off kilter because they have become accustomed to how you interact with them. I saw remnants of that in my mother. You know, the judgment that I had, the criticism that I had of her over those years, some of it intentional, wanting to, strike out, some of it unintentional. And I saw remnants of that. And when I met that with humility and grace, that's what forgiveness gave me. Humility and grace with my mother. She would make these excuses. Yes, I know, this, that, or the other thing, something I'd been critical of her before. And when it was no longer met with that criticism, her behavior changed. And she softened. And her tension started to relieve itself in her interactions with me. And I feel her true self came forward. I saw a person that was not the mother I grew up with. was not the mother I had formed a new relationship with. I feel like it was her true self that I started to see and accept. It didn't mean we didn't fight anymore. We did. However, we got it out in the moment. I would say removing that fear that I had of losing her allowed me to have those confrontations in the moment, and then we were done. We could clear the air. It also took form. It didn't matter who else was around us. We could look each other in the eye and say, this is what's happening right now. This is what I'm going to do. And the reply was, and this is what I'm going to do. And we could move on from that. Incredibly liberating. Others didn't understand it always. Others saw a mother and daughter, and there's a societal norm that's there around the definition of mother and daughter, or mother and child. It doesn't have to be daughter. That's my experience as a daughter. But there's a societal norm. And when you start to push that norm and you expose more of the reality of your relationship, the truth of your relationship, it makes others uncomfortable. It makes others uncomfortable, and they will judge you for that, whether you are the mother or the daughter, or the mother or the child, or the parent or the child, or the caregiver or the child, the spouse, the lover, the sibling, the familiar connection, whether it's by blood or by choice. Others will judge you for that. And guess what? It's okay, because it is the relationship you have with that other person that is the primary focus, because you are still healing that relationship, and finding forgiveness will allow you to have those difficult moments in the moment, live through them together, and come into a much healthier relationship where you can have the fun and the silliness, and the serious conversations and the loving and tender conversations. And you can share the stories without thinking about what was going on with you at that time. That's remarkable, actually, that you're able to do that I was able to do that. My mother would tell these stories at times that were very difficult within our relationship, but tell all these other stories around that, not about us. We never talked about that. That is one area that I wish we could have confronted that much earlier on. At this point, we could have gone into a therapy or something like that. It never occurred to me at that time to do that, to go into therapy with her. However, that my forgiving her allowed me to let go of the hurt I was experiencing in that moment of time that she was telling these stories about, that allowed me to actually listen. The stories are gifts that I love to this day. And I didn't have to try to insert myself in the story. What was happening to me at that time when you were doing this and that with this other person. I didn't have to try to insert myself. That's exhausting, actually. It's mentally exhausting. It's been a lot of years doing that. So be gentle with yourself. Be gentle with the other person. Open yourself up to the universe and what is trying to tell you. Have the courage to forgive and let the healing begin. It's going to take you on a wild ride that you never expected or anticipated. You will find peace. You will find love and appreciation. And you will be grateful that you forgave that other person. No one can ever take that away from you. Do you have a story of forgiveness that you'd like to share with me? I would love to hear that. You can email me at hellosusan@findingforgivenesspodcast.com. Thank you for being with me today and listening to my podcast, Finding Forgiveness, a Family Fairy Tale. I welcome your comments. A big thank you to the team at Produce Your Podcast for helping me make my dreams a reality. Until next time, I'm Susan Gibson signing off with gratitude and appreciation. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Finding Forgiveness, a family fairy tale podcast. To continue the conversation, visit findingforgivenesspodcast.com and send an email to hellosusan@findingforgivenesspodcast.com to share your story. Until we meet again.